Hey everyone, welcome to the Knitteratti podcast. I'm Lincoln Ashley from Knitteratti Designs. If you're a returning viewer, it's fantastic that you've come back. I hope that you're finding something that you enjoy. And if you're a new viewer, we're so happy to have you. I'm starting with the M's already. Yeah, it's been a long week, and I have to say for me it has been a little bit unproductive. So if you've watched last week's podcast, I was mentioning how it was really hot and, it was making it difficult to knit. Well, this week, kind of the heat came into this week. So whereas last week I felt I still had a lot to show, this week I felt that I've struggled to really get something out of there. Partly because of the heat, but I mean, for the last few days now, it has cooled quite a lot, and I just feel as though I've lost my mojo a little bit. And I think we've all been there. I've seen comments from other people in various places saying, I've lost my knitting mojo, and how do I get back to it? So, as usual, I'm going to show you what I did this week, and then hopefully I'm going to have a few new ideas to share. And that'll be towards the end of this part, but before the technical section. Okay, so you can see here, you've probably, if any of you watch regularly, you've seen this shawl before. This is the Midsummer shawl, and I have this here to remind me to tell everyone that the pattern for this shawl will be released on the 1st of July. So that's not too far away. And because you're all, I'll just show you a few different views. To be honest, you've seen it all before. This is a large triangular shawl. Sorry, I'm not sure what's going on with the colour here today. Something very strange happening. Yeah, this is a large triangular shawl. So as soon as it goes live, I suppose, since the pattern is available, you'll be able to see multiple pictures of it online. If you haven't already, you can check out my Instagram account and you'll see some pictures there, because I've been wearing this for months. I'm really confident about this pattern going out this time, because even though I do test my patterns, I have them tested, I've gone with a different method this time, and I've actually done it through a Ravelry group, and I really feel that I've gotten a lot of really good feedback. I feel as though the testers actually went to a fair bit of trouble to convey what they were experiencing while they were doing it. So I'm actually really, really excited to put this out and see how it goes. So just to recap on how you can get a discount on this pattern, Tier 3 Patreon subscribers will get this pattern for free. Tier 2 Patreon subscribers, Tier 3 Patreon subscribers pay $10 a month. Tier 2 Patreon subscribers who pay $5 a month, you will receive 75% off this pattern. And Tier 1 Patreon subscribers, which is $1 per month, you will receive 50% off this pattern. If you're not a patron and you don't want to be, that's absolutely fine. You don't need to sign up to get a discount. What you can do is you can sign up to my mailing list, and you will find the link for the mailing list in the description of this video. You'll also find the link for the Patreon. So people who are a member of the mailing list, and if you do want to do that, you need to sign up soon, because the discount will be going out at the end of this month as part of the June newsletter. They will receive a 20% discount. Okay, so just sign up for the mailing list. You will get a free Addy Toon pattern. The Addy Toon pattern has been updated according to feedback that I've gotten from other newsletter subscribers. So if you had difficulty with that before, please contact me, or download the pattern, take a look, see if that helps. Or like I said, contact me. That's fine. I'm always very, very willing and excited to help people who are knitting my patterns. So you'll get a free Addy Toon pattern and a discount code for 20% off this pattern if you sign up for the mailing list. One thing I will say is I know how many people will have access to these codes, so please don't share them, because I will be limiting the number of uses according to the number of subscribers that I have. So if you take one of the codes and you post it online somewhere, it'll still only, the same number of people will only have access to it, but you know, it'll be the wrong people who get it, and it's really not fair. But basically I have to try and cover myself. I mean, it's a horrible thing to have to say, but there's a bad, you know, there can be bad apples anywhere who ruin it for everyone. That said, I've never come across that in this group, so I'm very hopeful. But yeah, just to put it out there, because sometimes people see coupon codes and they want to share. Please don't. This is my way of giving back to people who have been supporting me. But you can encourage people to sign up to the newsletter and get the coupon code for themselves. You can always unsubscribe later. If you find that, I mean, I try to only send out one email a month, but if that's too much for you, you can always unsubscribe. Anyway, that is it about the Midsummer Shawl. Oh, there is one more thing actually. Some of you may not know this, but Midsummer Murders is actually a TV show, an English TV show. I'm not sure if they're still making it. I know they're not still making it with the original cast, but anyway, if you're into the sort of slightly kooky murder mysteries, that's what inspired this shawl for me. If you've watched it before and you're going to watch it again, Joyce, myself and the Enabler reckon Joyce is actually a serial killer, and Tom Barnaby, who is the main character, he's a detective inspector, I think, John Barnaby, but I'm not sure of his title, but he's the main dude when it comes to solving the crimes. We reckon that he actually goes around and just tries to clean up after her and points the finger elsewhere. So if you've seen it before and you want to go back and watch it again, just try it with a slightly different eye. It works, surprisingly. I mean, there's one point where Joyce gets stuck in a cave-in and all of a sudden people are dead. It had to be her. She's everywhere. But yeah, there you go. That's our little chuckle that we have here when we're watching Midsummer. But yeah, it is kooky, but it's very entertaining. So if you needed a recommendation for a new series to try, that's definitely one to go for. Oh look, that shows the pattern quite nicely actually. Yay! Okay, so what's next? I'm still working on my spring into summer cal. I had hoped to have the next lace section in by now, but like I said, my Mojo has just been off all week. I'm not sure if you saw this properly last week. Maybe you did. But yeah, I really like how this shows how I've brought the two colours in together. Sorry, I've just hit my stand again. I was never sure if that came across properly before in the other pattern. But yeah, this knit along is still going on. It's in my Ravelry. It's in my Ravelry group. That's the Knitteratti group. Knitteratti. Or even if you just want to check out my patterns on Ravelry, this pattern is free. If you look elsewhere, you'll find that it isn't free. Basically, that's because I get charged a certain amount for listing it and what have you. And if I'm gonna charge for it, it's going to be in line with my other patterns. For the simple reason that I'm not sure if I'm devaluing it, or you know, you get to a point where you have to wonder: are you devaluing your work when you give discounts and when you give it for free? And also, if one is a whole lot cheaper than the others just to cover the listing fees, then do people look at it and go, oh, well, that can't be much good because it's so much cheaper? But yeah, if you are ever buying my patterns, check Ravelry first, because they don't charge me to list a free pattern. So you may well find that the pattern is free if you look there first. There's just a little tip for you. And like I said, this one, if you want to give it a go, it is still free on Ravelry. And it is fairly simple. I think it's simple but effective. You know, no difficult lace. You can see there it's just eyelets. So whereas I wouldn't say it's necessarily for a beginner knitter, I would say that it is for a very confident beginner or an intermediate lace knitter. So that's that. See, they're always so much nicer when they're blocked. You see, this is, if you haven't knit lace before, or maybe you've started and this is a big complaint of beginner lace knitters, they're like, oh my God, it doesn't look right and it's all bunching up, and I totally get it. That was my reaction the first time as well. But when you block it, and blocking basically means you soak it until it's wet. Well, obviously if you're soaking it, Linkle, get with it. But yeah, you soak it, give it a good soak. You want to make sure that it's wet the whole way through, because with an animal fibre, not so much with lace weight because it's so thin, but it can take a while to get all of the air out of the fibre. So if you say you knit a jumper or a sweater or whatever, and we'll say that it's chunky weight and you've used an animal fibre, so we'll say that it's made of alpaca. And I normally soak it in my sink. So you put it in your sink and you just push it very, very gently, just push it down. You'll see all of the air bubbles coming up. And that's the air that's inside the fibre, and that is partly what makes it so warm, because that air is being trapped in there, basically, and it really helps with the insulation. It's one of the reasons why, you know, if you live in a very, very cold area, or you sometimes see this as advice for the elderly in winter who can get very, very cold, they tell you to dress in layers, and that's because you trap air between those layers. So this is why animal fibres are so warm. They are naturally trapping air inside them. So yeah, when you block it, basically you can see all of this air bubbling up, which I always think is really cool. I know I've mentioned this before, but for anybody who hasn't seen it, I do have a scientific background. I am a card carrying scientist, as I call it. I have all of the pieces of paper and stuff like that. I have the PhD, and, you know, qualified to philosophize, will insist on doing it. So yeah, I find that every time, no matter how often I block, every time I love to see those bubbles coming up. But yeah, once you've soaked it through and you've gotten all of the air out, which means that it's wet all the way through, because it can take a long time for a thicker fibre to actually, because again, animal fibre is water resistant. This is why you don't really see waterlogged sheep. You know, their coats have to be, coats, they're not dogs. Their fleece has to be somewhat water resistant. Or else, I mean, can you imagine how uncomfortable they'd be? And, you know, that would just be horrible. Poor waterlogged sheep. So, yeah, you soak it anyway. I will get back to my point. And then you pin it. So, I might actually, yeah, at some point in the future, and I'm not going to commit to it just yet, but I will show you my blocking process with the blocking boards and the pins and the whole lot. I'm going to be honest with you, blocking is a pain. I think it's a pain. I don't enjoy spending ages, I do it in my bathroom, I don't enjoy spending ages sitting on the bathroom floor, trying to get things pinned perfectly. So you'll normally find when I block stuff it isn't perfect. I don't think it needs to be. You know, I will block it out so that you can see this, and when it dries, it stays like this. It doesn't go back like that. So it dries in position. So it will actually be something more like that, because it'll be pinned in all directions. And that's how blocking works. So yeah, I don't know, if anybody is particularly interested in blocking, let me know. Because I'm not actually going to sit on filming my bathroom floor unless I have to. Well, I won't say unless I have to, but I like to know that somebody actually wants to see it before I go to that trouble. Because even though I am blocking stuff, there is generally quite an amount of me turning the air blue and things like that. I will admit to it. I'm a bad knitter when it comes to stuff like that. But anyhow, yeah, there we go. That's my little discussion on blocking. Okay, you need to pull it all directions. But yeah, it's also why sometimes something can look quite small on the needles, or quite small when you bind off, and then you block it and all of a sudden it goes from this size to this size. and then that's for the whole thing, you know. So if this row doubles in size, they're all doubling in size. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna stop pulling up my knitting now. Okay, on to the next thing that I've been working on this week. Right, so last week I showed you a whole bunch of yarn that I picked up. I should straighten this out really before it gets... Sorry, I will explain why I have two lots of yarn here in just a second. You see, when I said I lost my mojo, I really meant it, because this has just been left on a chair upstairs, and then when I picked it up, it kind of went everywhere. Normally, I am a lot better at keeping my yarn straight. But yeah, I've just had a lot of frustration this week. Sorry, I'm just going to take this off camera for a second so that I can get in here and undo this knot that I've created. There we go. Okie dokie. So this is Lang Yawol. I still don't know if I'm supposed to pronounce that as a V or not. So you'll have to excuse my bad pronunciation. And here we have, just get that to focus, 50 grams of virgin wool and nylon. Okay. So it does say that for socks you should kind of need 2 of these, but I'm going to try a pair with 1 because I'm curious to see how much of a pair, sorry, that's out of focus again. I want to see how well I can do with 1. You know what I mean? I want to see how far it actually stretches. I reckon it's going to be a pair of ankle socks. And I'm not going to play yarn chicken this time. I am going to weigh the socks. So if any of you have been watching and you saw me with the West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, seeing how much I can get out of a 100-gram ball, I got 1 proper man-sized pair of socks, possibly a little bit shorter than I would have gone if I did it again. I would probably knit them a little bit longer, but I also got a pair of ankle socks. So that has made me curious just to see how far I can get this to go. So if we take a look, and this sock has also been the source of much frustration this week. Now I know it's dark so you can't see a hell of a lot, but I've basically done it in a similar way to the socks that I have been knitting. What I wanted to do, I wanted to put in a different type of heel than what I had been using. Sorry, am I losing stitches here? Not yet. Not yet, Linkle. There we go. Yeah, I'm using my 9-inch circulars to knit these. So yeah, I wanted to put in a different type of heel to the one that I had been using. And I have to say, there are some really bad tutorials out there. Okay. I've been knitting for a long time. I might not be a sock knitter. I still don't consider myself a sock knitter, even though I've done a number of pairs recently. But I can manage with a minimum of instruction. Okay, I get the idea. You can say, you know, from decrease so many stitches over so many rows. I'm good with that. You know, I don't necessarily need a huge level of instruction to do it. But oh, there are some bad... I actually had difficulty. Now, I'm sure that this is partially the frame of mind that I had going into it, and I hope to do better next week. This is the only thing that I can say. I was looking, first of all, for a tutorial for the Dutch heel, toe up. So technically it seems to be called the reverse Dutch heel, which is fair enough. No, can't find a decent one. I can find several tutorials, but I couldn't find one. You know, they say things like, you know, do your gusset increases and then do this. But what they don't tell you is where those gusset increases go according to where, you know, where they should line up with your foot. So for me, gusset increases should start, just in my mind, you know, not being a sock knitter. In my mind, when I hear begin your gusset increases, I think I'm doing that at the arch of the foot. Because certainly when I knit these ones, I start where the arch of the foot begins and they turn out perfectly. So unfortunately it is dark, but you can see that line there? That's where I've done my increases. But as far as I can tell, when you do that for the Dutch heel, you do not start your gusset increases in the same place. They do tell me to knit a gusset, but they don't tell me how much I need to increase. I think the gusset increases, as far as I can work out, they start much later. So they start when the top of it hits your ankle. I think that's where they're starting. But again, I'm not sure. I couldn't find anywhere that was giving me instruction. Oh no, look, when I'm giving out I've lost my stitches. One off this side, there we go. I should really get some little stoppers to put on there. But however, I don't normally lose my stitches. But yeah, I couldn't find any decent instruction on it. I found one very long video that seemed to cover a lot of what I was looking for. But even at that, I'm looking at it, I'm going, that one closed the hole. I'm looking at it and I'm looking at problems as I'm going. And I suppose for me that's an issue. I feel as though the tutorials that I was finding were being created by people who were as inexperienced as I am. And that is not what I'm looking for when I'm looking for a tutorial. I actually want it from somebody who is very confident about what they're doing. But I mean, the tutorial that I found, she's doing her decreases and she hasn't said how many she's decreasing. She's just, here's how you do it. And then she stops and comes back at the end and it's like, here's one I made earlier, which is great if you tell me how many you've decreased by, you know? Or if you tell me you keep increasing until you get to this criteria, but there's no explanation. And I'm going to stop ranting about it now because I'm sure that you've heard enough. But I also had problems with finding tutorials for a Flegel heel. And they must be out there. They must be. It must be me. And I'm sure that I've just been having a cantankerous week or something. You know when your mojo is gone and you just can't settle? I think that's what it's been like for me. So that's why, the long and short of it is, that's why I'm doing the same heel that you've seen before, which I didn't want to do. And in the next set that I do, I am determined I'm going to do a different heel. Because there's no point in me showing you the same thing over and over. What I would like you to note about this one, and you can see here that I have 2 strands coming out. Thing about this yowel is that you get a little extra spool in the center that is for reinforcing your toe and your heel. So I'm currently doing some of the short rows for my heel, and you can see I used it for the toe and I added it in where the short rows began for the heel. I didn't add it in for the entire gusset because I don't think that there's actually enough on this to accommodate that. But also you shouldn't really need to reinforce that much of it. So you literally, or at least this is the way I'm doing it. Maybe somebody else would like to suggest something else. But yeah, I'm literally just holding it double and it is just a little bit thicker. I wonder, can I get the light to go through there? Okay. Possibly can't see it very well. But up until here, see how the light goes through very easily? And then we get to here, and it's more dense. So you can actually feel, get back on there, Stitch. If you were here and you were feeling it, you could actually feel that it is thicker around the heel and also the toe. Especially the toe, actually. I don't know what I was doing there, but it is super, super thick and reinforced. Just see, is there anything that I can do to... But no, look, you can't see it at all because it's a perfect match. So your socks won't look like they've been reinforced, but they are, and you can feel it. You know, I would be quite confident that, oh, for heaven's sake, look. This sock does not like me. I'm certain. I will persist. But I am absolutely certain that this sock and I are going to come to blows before it is completed. Sorry, I know I'm picking these up off camera, but I want to grab them before they go anywhere. I'm not even sure that I have them on the right needles anymore, but I can deal with that later. Will not worry. But yeah, that's my little sock rant. I do hope that I haven't bored you with it. Just, it has been a big frustration to me this week. I was like, it's okay. I'm not getting a hell of a lot done on the other stuff, but that's okay. I will have a new heel to talk about on the podcast, and that'll be great. And then last night I just gave in and started working the one that I've already shown you. So yeah, I'll let you know how this goes and how much I can get out of what's left. I'm going to finish the heel and then I'm going to weigh it, and I'm going to see then, hopefully I'll have more than 25 grams left so that I can do a little ankle sock. I just need a few grams to be able to do a tiny bit of ribbing and a bind off. But I'll let you know anyway. And I'll let you know if I manage to do 2 toes and heels out of one of these. So that's one of the goals for next week. Okay, stop complaining, Linkle. People have heard enough. Okay, so something else that I've been working on, and you've seen this over the last few weeks, you've seen it grow. It's not very easy to show it because it is on a circular needle. Sorry, I'll just turn this over. So you can see it is on a circular needle, even though it's a shawl. Some people don't associate circular needles with shawl knitting and what have you. They think it's just for jumpers, but no, you can use them for everything. In the technical section today, I'm going to show you how to do this cast on. So the cast on was done right at the centre. You can see there's a little hole there. I'm just going to show you. I haven't woven in the end to secure that hole, and that's why it opens a little. But you can see that I just pull that tighter and you get a nice little puckering at the edge. Sorry, there's actually a dog barking outside, so that's what my puppy is responding to. Okay, so I've gotten to the point where I've done 2 lace sections and I'm just about finished this garter section, which I think is probably all that I got done during the week. I think I finished the very end of the lace section and then I did this. And this is how much I have left. Sorry, I should mention this is my Mana Stella Uruguay Marina. Do I have a... Sorry. There we go. It's the information. Do I have a colourway? I want to say it's Arboretum. Oh, there it is. Arboretum, yeah. So that's what that is. Bought at the Edinburgh Knitting and Stitching Show. Now, I probably have about half of my cake left. And I'm thinking what it's time to do now is stop going in the round and to actually start knitting on and edging. So that's going to be my next thing. The problem with doing that, and I don't know if any of you have ever done it without a pattern before, is that it can be difficult to estimate how much I need left in this to complete the edging. And I've definitely been caught short before. I have been caught on a massive, massive circular shawl. I was caught less than 100 metres from the end. Actually, not less than 100 metres, less than 15 metres from the end. And that sucked. So if you ever wonder why you might want to pay for a pattern instead of just looking at it and engineering it yourself, which you can do, you absolutely can. This is one of the benefits. Now, it was my own pattern at that point. I was not engineering anything from an image. But yeah, that sucked. And it has left me in a position where I want to move on. I actually want to do quite a wide or quite a deep edging on this. And I'm just not certain because I know it doesn't look it. I know it looks quite small at the moment, but there is over 500 stitches on that needle. So if I go sorry, just a moment. Sorry, clearly my puppies are done with listening to me. So yeah, I'm a little gun shy, and I'm a little bit worried that even though I still have half my yarn that I'm going to run out. Also, I haven't been able, and again this comes back to the Mojo having disappeared, I haven't been able to decide what sort of edging that I want to knit onto this. So that's another goal for the next week, is to work out exactly how I want to proceed with what I have going on here. Do really love the colour. I know I say this every week, but you know, I wouldn't work with it if I didn't love it. That's kind of one of the benefits of knitting. You know, you don't need to put up with whatever came in the box if you don't want to, you know, if you've gone out. I know some people like to buy the yarn with the pattern, and the name of these things is eluding me at the moment. You know, you get the box with the yarn in it and you have the pattern and the whole lot. But you know what? You don't have to, and that is one of the beautiful things. If you don't like what comes in the box, you go and get whatever it is you like. That way you have something completely unique. And again, just coming back to the blocking idea, you can see this here. You know, doesn't look brilliant. And if I just try and pull it a bit, see how much that stretches out and how much nicer it looks, how much more definition you have there on the edges. And it will look better again. That's another thing about blocking. It evens out your tension and things like that. There. So yeah, that's, if you haven't blocked before, definitely try it. And one of the things that I do like about these circular projects, see, I'm just going to take it. There we go. Little instant bag. I'll just push these back onto the needle. So there's that one. And the final thing that I've been working on this week, I actually work on this every week, and because it's been in my bag that I take with me when I go out, I really haven't shown it for the last few weeks. I have been working on it, and if you've been watching my Instagram, you will have seen a few updates on this. So it's just my Dye Ninja shawl. Well, I'm calling it that for the moment because I haven't given the pattern the name. The yarn is by Dye Ninja. And this is just my mosaic pattern, so you can see it is growing. And I mention it every, you can see my tiny 2mm needles. And every time I take it out, like I take it out when I stop for coffee and stuff like that, I try to get a repeat, like a full pattern repeat done, which seems to be working for me. So you can just see that I had enough time to just start into the next repeat the last time I sat down, which was before I went to the opticians. I have to go back tomorrow to pick up my new glasses, so I might actually be able to see things. Can you imagine? It was like the optician went, you know, you're going to see quite a difference when you put these on, and it was like, I didn't realise that I was gone blind again. And then you know the bit where they show you how thick the lenses are without any of the thinning on it, and oh my god, oh dear, yeah, I'm blind. I really am. So you know, if we've met before and you happen to pass me on the street, it's not that I've blanked you. I just couldn't see you. I didn't realise it. I was there going, yeah, I can't really read that car reg very well. Yeah, it might be time, you know, time to consider a new set. Actually, one thing that did come from that visit that I thought I might mention here. You know how lighting is important for knitters, especially when you're working with, you know, thread, which is what lace weight is basically. It's thread. And I hear about people buying these expensive OT lights and stuff like that. You know what? I've never tried an OT light. I'm sure it's fantastic. I'm also sure that I couldn't afford one. So what I've been using is, if you go to IKEA, you can get these, and I should have brought one with me. This is a theme for my podcast, isn't it? I should have brought one with me. You know the ones that it's just one small LED bulb and it clips onto a surface, so you could clip it onto the side of your desk or something like that. And they're really cheap. I think I have both a plug-in one and I also have one that takes batteries. And I think the one that takes batteries is about €2 and the plug-in one might be €2.50 or €3. I would definitely recommend the plug-in one. The one with the batteries is okay in a pinch, but the light doesn't stay at a proper strength as the batteries go down, and for me they seem to go down very quickly. But the one that plugs in is fantastic, and you can just really direct that light, because it is like the bulb is maybe that size. It's really small. And you can just direct it right where you want it, right at that point. So if you have somebody else in the room with you that's watching TV or whatever, it doesn't have to bother them. I think that you can actually get something very similar in a floor lamp. So if you don't have anything to clip it onto, you can probably get obviously it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but you can probably get a floor lamp version. But just because they're these little tiny bulbs, they're cheap enough, I think, to warrant trying. So I would definitely recommend that if you find that you need, and you know what, even if you're finding at the moment that you don't need a little extra light for your knitting, try it anyway. Because I didn't think that I needed it until I tried it. And at that price, sure, what harm? It'll always be useful for something. I mean, ours has been used to get into nooks and crannies. You know when you think you've lost something down the back somewhere, and this thing is just so small, and the length of the cord for plugging it in is so long that, you just plug it in somewhere and, shove it down the back of the chair. Is that where I drop my needle? It has multiple uses. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that. And I'll roll this up and put it away. I do have one other thing that I want to discuss. It is something that I will be participating in, and I'm not sure if the call is still open for everybody to participate in, but certainly it was open to the public. So I don't know how many of you have heard of Bletchley Park. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to purl on this while we're talking, or while I'm talking. I like to think that other people are knitting as well, that we're all just kind of knitting together while we're sitting here. So yeah, Bletchley Park, if you haven't heard of it, Google it. It's BLETCHLEY Park. And they were, what on earth did I do down here? Okay, just fix this. They were very much involved in code breaking. It's basically where the code breaking was done during World War II. And possibly World War I as well, I'm not sure. I should be much better at this because it's where they had the Enigma machines. If you've heard of Alan Turing, and there have been a number of movies out recently about him. I mean, he was absolutely persecuted because he was a gay man in, 1940s, 1950s England. I believe he has received an apology posthumously. If he hadn't, he should have. Because what happened to him was an absolute travesty. But the man was a genius. And as somebody who, spent many, many years studying computer science, he's definitely one of those scientists for me that I can really, respect and really respect their work and the effort that they put in, and not just Alan Turing. I mean, he's kind of the famous name associated with it, but there were an awful lot of men and women who were working as codebreakers there at the time. I think there's a Benedict Cumberbatch movie with Keira Knightley. I'm not a Keira Knightley fan, but I think that the movie is probably still, even for me, worth watching. So yeah, if you want to get a little bit of the history of what went on there, definitely look into that. But the Knitting Connection, they have a call out at the moment. If you look at Knit One Post One, I believe it's called, they're looking for people to knit 1940s patterns and to submit them. Now, there's no payment involved. You pay for your own yarn and you submit it. Basically a set dressing, because they do a lot of tours there, and, they they really do promote the history of the place, and even if you're not interested in the history, it's gorgeous. If I was living in England, and if a big wedding would, or even, you wouldn't have a huge wedding but in this place, but if I was having a wedding and inviting people, which I didn't do, this would have been where I would have hosted it, I think. It's just a small room, it would just be a very intimate wedding, but I think it would be an absolutely beautiful setting, and you could use the gardens for the pictures, and it's not really knitting related, so I'm going to stop now. But yeah, they do tours there showing, what went on and who did what. And up until recently, I think some of the people there who actually, helped manufacture, I think it was the Colossus. Now, I could be wrong because it's been a few years since I've been there. But one of the guys who, it's difficult to say manufactured the Colossus. Now, he helped to build it, because this was not a manufactured item as such. But he was there up until recently, and unfortunately I think he's passed away now. But they do put a lot of effort into keeping things genuine and according to the time period. So I will be knitting a sweater, or jumper, as we would call it, for that. So it'll be from a genuine vintage 1940s pattern, which is what they've called for. If you're not, if you don't want to do the genuine article, I think they would politely decline to take the item. Also, if you are going to get involved, you do need to sign up first, because they said that they're not going to take unsolicited items. But yeah, over the next few weeks, you'll see me covering what's going on with that. So it's going to be one of the things that I'm casting on, hopefully in the current week, once I can decide on a pattern. You see, this is another thing with my Mojo being gone this week. So many really, really fantastic patterns. Couldn't pick one. And it has been the longest time since I knit from a pattern as well. So I want to pick a good one that I'll enjoy, that maybe I'll learn a new technique from or something. Because that's kind of part of the point for me in using a pattern. And it's actually why I do like to make a point of using a pattern at least once or twice a year. It's because you never know what you're gonna learn from it. I'm sorry if I was moving too fast there with the knitting. What happens is I start talking and I forget about the visual, and I forget that it doesn't suit everybody to see it moving that fast. So there, hopefully I've slowed that down enough. But yeah, that's something new that hopefully you will be seeing from next week. And like I said, if you want to get involved, I don't know if they're still accepting applications, but you do need to give them a shout beforehand. But just take a look on the website and see what's going on there. It could be a fun thing to do, something a little bit different. So yeah, and just in case I forgot to mention, they're going to be used as set dressing, but also I believe sometimes the staff, if they're doing tours and things like that, they will dress appropriately, so some of the items might be used for that. And it's not just sweaters that they're looking for, they're also looking for hats, mittens. There was a whole list of stuff. Now there's also a list of stuff that they won't take, but there was a big range of items that you could absolutely make. Okay, I do also have another shawl idea, but you know what? I think we'll save that for next week, because I think I've probably taken up enough of your time. So like I said earlier, I'm going to be doing the circular cast on today in the technique section. So if you're not interested in that, thank you so much for watching this far, and hopefully we'll see you back again next week. If you could please like and subscribe, that would be wonderful. It really, really does help me get out there, and it helps me grow the audience. And if you think some of your friends might be interested, maybe you're in a knitting group, maybe there's a particular technique that your group would like me to cover, by all means let me know. I would be very happy to accommodate that. So yeah, thank you for watching this far. And for everybody else who is going to join me in the technique section, thank you so much for persevering, and I will see you in just a moment. So we are going to do the circular cast on that you would use for things like shawls that you're knitting from the centre out. So the way I do it, and the way I do it and the way other people do it are almost definitely not going to be the same on this, because I cast on all onto one needle. There's no point in complicating an already, I won't say that it's a complicated cast on, but it is not for a beginner, okay? I wouldn't suggest that as a beginner, this is one of the cast-ons that you absolutely need to learn. Just wait until you're a little bit more advanced. But still, it's good to see it. It's good to try it. You know, the flip side of it is that you do have to push yourself a little if you want to learn anything, I guess. So I'm going to use one needle. As it happens, I have a DPN. Doesn't have to be. You can do this onto a circular needle for use with magic loop if you want. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast on 9 stitches, and then I'm going to show you how to get those over 3 needles. Okay, so we start with our yarn and we just make a loop. Okay, that's it, just a loop. We're not making a knot, just that. Okay, now I'm actually going to hold it with the yarn crossed this way, I think, just to make it a little bit easier. So the size of loop that you'll make here, the more stitches you need, the bigger you'll want this loop to be. But to be honest, if you're using this cast on, you're casting on 8, 9, 12 stitches. That's kind of as many as you're casting on. It is used for a small number of stitches, for a small number of stitches even. Okay, so just to be clear about the way I have it, this is my tail over here, and I'm crossing the working yarn over the top. Okay, so tail over here, working yarn over the top. Just make sure that this is focused. Okay, so working yarn, and this is my loop. I put the needle through the loop, I pick up the working yarn and I bring it through the needle. Then I pick up the working yarn again, and this is the bit where I could use a third hand. I just pass one over the other, okay? And there's 1 stitch. So I'll show you that again. Here's my working yarn, okay? I'm just going to pull that to, just make sure that you have a little extra down here just so that it doesn't pop out and you lose your stitches. Okay, so I put the needle through the loop, okay? And now that I have the first stitch on, it becomes easier to, because I don't have to try and hold that loop closed. Then I make a stitch, and then I knit it. Okay, I'll do it once more. So I put the needle through the loop, okay? Knit a stitch almost. So basically what I'm doing here is I am just drawing the working yarn up through that loop. And then I knit a stitch. Oops. That didn't go very well. Just do it again there. So I just knit a stitch. Okay. Now I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to start that from the beginning again, because it is difficult. It's fine once you get the hang on it, but the first time you do it, it is difficult to know what's going where. So the way I like to do it is I have my loop around my fingers in my left hand, okay? I have a little bit of a tail here. Thank you. Sorry, one of my dogs is just sounding off over there. Bear in mind, this tail, you are going to weave this tail in as a way of securing your cast on later on. So if you can't weave this tail in firmly, there is a chance that your cast on will come out. So do leave yourself enough to be comfortable. Okay, so I have the working yarn over the top when I'm making the loop. So on the bottom, there's my tail end, working yarn is over the top. Okay, so I'm just holding that little crossed point. You know, the point where they join each other. I'm just holding that in one hand, okay? And for the first stitch, it's difficult to hold the working yarn as you normally would. So I'm just going to use my other hand to bring it over the top. So I've put my needle through the loop. I am bringing my working yarn around, and I'm just drawing that working yarn through the loop, okay? That's all I'm doing. And then I take the working yarn, bring it across the needle to make a stitch, okay? That is the hardest part done. Because now I don't need to hold this closed, it's going to hold itself closed, so I can, you know, it's not as difficult. I can hold the yarn now and I can tension it around this finger as I normally would while knitting. So again, I go through the loop and I draw the working yarn through, and then I knit a stitch, okay? And again, through the loop, bring the yarn around, so you're drawing it through the loop, and then it's like knitting a stitch there. Okay, so here's the first 3 done. I'm going to do 9, so I'm going to keep going through the loop, working yarn around to create a stitch, and then I'm sure you'll have if you practice this a little bit, you'll find a far more elegant way of creating that stitch without pulling it with your nails. So this is number 5. And the reason why, after pulling I could just leave it there. I could just leave it there and call that stitch cast on. But to be honest, it's not as firm as I would like it to be. So it's my preference to knit that extra stitch. So there's 5, 6, okay, I'm going to put a little more yarn there, 7, okay. If you wanted, you could get a second needle involved to help you pull that stitch over, but I'm too lazy. And this is how I would do it for myself, so I presume that this is how other people would do it. I think that's 8, 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, last stitch. Okay. And there we go. So you can see now we have our 9 stitches cast on. They're still all on one needle. And I have this loop here. So to get rid of that loop, let's take the tail end of your yarn and pull. Now, I'm not going to tighten it completely just yet. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take my other needles. And yeah, I'll do it off this end. Sorry, I feel like the focus has gone a little. So I want 3 stitches on each needle. So instead of casting 3 stitches onto each needle and making things very complicated, trying to hold 3 needles and do this cast on, just make it easier on yourself. Cast onto 1 needle and then separate them onto 3. And you can do the same with 4 or whatever. Okay, so just going to take 3 here. So you can see it there, and you still have the little loose hole in the middle. So you take the tail and you just, sorry, I'll try and hold these needles a little better so that you can see it, because my hand is kind of in the way there. Okay, so we have our loop in the middle, and I've just taken the tail and pull. And to be honest, I'm not too worried about getting that tight until I've knit a few rounds, because then your material is just a lot firmer and it just becomes a lot easier to pull that into place. And as you can see with this one that I showed you earlier, where I've used this cast on, I haven't actually woven that tail in. It's still there. So I could loosen that if I wanted to. And you know what? If you wanted to loosen it up a bit, that could be a nice feature of your knitting. You know, it might be something that you like. But I'm not too I just keep an eye on it, and I'll just tighten it a little when I need to. So if you don't happen to have your darning needle, you know, for weaving in ends, or you want, you know, basically don't panic just because you can't weave the end in straight away. It's not going to fall out that easily because we've knit that extra stitch as we were picking it up and bringing it around. So even if it does loosen, you just grab the tail end again, give it a little tug, and it'll tighten up. Okay. I do like this cast on. It's a little finicky to learn how to do it, but it's totally worth it. Look at how pretty that is. Just that. Let's try and get the focus there. There we go. Nice and pretty. So there you are. I hope that that's been some help. If it wasn't clear, please let me know. I can always try again. And if there is a particular technique that you'd like me to cover, absolutely let me know. I'd love to do it. A few other people have requested techniques before, and I've been more than happy to accommodate it, because at least I know then that somebody is definitely getting something out of it. So yeah, as I said earlier, please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, or if there's anything at all that you'd like to let me know, or anything that you liked or disliked about this video, please do put it in the comment section below. As always, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I'm on Twitter, but it can be difficult to catch me there. What else? Patreon I've mentioned. Yeah, all the good social media platforms. You'll find me on them. Okay, guys. So hopefully you'll get some good knitting done this week. I'll refine my mojo, and I'll see you all in next week's podcast. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Take care.